Okay, so I think we can start to introduce ourselves. As we said, we are based in Zurich, Switzerland, and we are product designers. But yeah, maybe we are not just designing products. Oh yeah, we forgot to say our names. So I'm Karina, sorry.
And I'm Lucas.
Yes. And our studio is called KreativKonsum in German, which means KreativKonsum. So what shall we tell first? Maybe what kind of projects we normally do. We do like, let's say, quite normal product design. So for example, we designed a coffee machine or also designing games or stuff like that. But we're also doing more spatial stuff like sceneries for theater or installations. And I think what all these projects have in common that we always have the sustainability in mind and try all to make it part of our work all the time. Yes. We can also maybe say that we now also part of association since a few months, which is called Share and Repair, where really the case is to share goods, but also to share knowledge and also to learn how to repair stuff. That's not all about designing new products. It's also about repairing stuff we already have or adapt it so that we can use it in a new way. Yes. So maybe we can also start to show you some of our stuff. What do you think?
So I'm not sure if there's Aisha joining, or is she the one with the internet issues?
Yeah, I think no, she's not the one with the internet issue, but I'm not sure if Aisha is going to join. Maybe she might come in later because she did send me a message also about the electrical issue here at her place. But yeah, we can continue, and in case if we see somebody else come in, we can take a call at that time if we would like to also introduce them when they come.
All right. Yeah, so you all joined, I guess, because you read our description of our room, which was human versus environment, can design be a mediator. So that's something that is always part of our thinking when it comes to designing a product, or as Karina said, installations in any kind. So it is a dilemma for us, and we would like to talk with you guys about that. Maybe to give you an idea what we mean by saying dilemma, we can show you one of our projects where we had this kind of dilemma. So we try to share the screen. So I guess you should see our screen now.
Can you see the screen already?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. So one project, so we're now on our website where we have the project called Breeding Cultures. It was in 2017. We went in for a 3 months residency to India. We went from Delhi down south to Kerala and visited many workshops and artists and creatives, cultural people, with the aim to make a research about natural fibers. So that's what you can see right here is a blog we wrote then. So now you ask maybe yourselves, what is the dilemma we had? So we went there to make a research with the natural material. We had a big interest in learning and knowing what is possible with such materials. So, and of course, the main interest is in this material is because it's a natural material, so it doesn't have a big impact sustainably wise. So in the end, after these 3 months, we developed a small collection of baskets, and they were produced in India and shipped to Switzerland for to sell them, these items. So that was something we had to deal with this. Does it make sense to produce something in India, even though it's a sustainable material and a natural material, ship it to Europe and sell it? We don't have an answer yet, because for us, sustainability has many layers. So one layer is, of course, the physical layer, but there's also a social layer of sustainability. And we'd like to know a bit of what you think about all of that.
Yeah, I saw Niti joined. Hi. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hello. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. I think we started also a little early.
Right.
So that's good. We already dig in a little into a project, but maybe you can just introduce yourself with some sentence.
Yeah, certainly. Hello, everyone. My name is Neeti, and I'm from India. And I am a molecular biologist. I basically study the DNA in animals and in environment, and perform bioinformatics analysis and work science applications in soil and water bioremediation. And I'm also dealing with how to tackle and detect the emerging micropollutants in the water body.
Niti, your connection
seems to be very weak. Maybe you can, I don't know, change place maybe? We didn't understand you very well. I'm sorry.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Much better. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah. So, I was saying that I perform molecular biology analysis, and I'm dealing with animal and environmental systems, and my work often finds application in water management and soil bioremediation projects. I've worked with the government, and currently I'm working with some NGOs in India. And I'm very fascinated to be here.
Cool. Thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah, we started to talk a little bit about the dilemma we have as designers, and started with showing a project we did in India, because that's why we have the connection to India also. We went there for a 3-month research to dig into the topic of natural fiber and also handcraft, especially weaving. And in these 3 months, we made a lot of connections, and with one little manufacturer, we now developed a kind of a series of baskets, and now they're shipped to Switzerland and we sell them here. And yeah, we had this question, is it sustainable to do that? So to produce something in India, ship it to Europe to sell it there. And this was something we really asked ourselves already at the beginning of this journey. Is it sustainable to fly to India to get knowledge there? Does this make sense? And yeah, for us, we always think also about what kind of sustainability is there. If you really think of your of the environment, then maybe it's not good to fly there. But if we also think of the relationships of the, let's say, social sustainability, we could make a lot of effort in our point of view. So yeah, it's really a kind of a dilemma, and it would be quite interesting for us to hear from you what's your opinion, and if you also have in your work the same situations where you have to struggle between these topics.
If I may say something, in this situation, for me, what struck me the most is who holds the agency here, right? And in my opinion, the the stakeholders that should ideally hold the agency are the ones that are impacted the most. And it's arguable who that is, but to me, it's the people who, perhaps the artisans and the crafts people who are at the grassroots. And you're right about, the environmental sustainability aspect and the carbon miles. But on the other hand, it's also about livelihood sustainability, and artists and crafts people benefit a lot from access to international markets. So it's really about me as a person of privilege, setting my privilege aside and looking at who might benefit the most. Because in this situation, the environmental sustainability might take second place to livelihood sustainability. So if it's in the best interests of the stakeholders that might benefit the most in this case, which is the people whose livelihoods might be enhanced or not, it's a difficult decision, but I might decide in favor of enhancing the livelihoods of those that need livelihood enhancement. Because environmental sustainability is very important, but it might seem like a bit of a first world concern in this case.
I agree. So, Manas, you seem to have kind of the same struggles. You said that you try to find out where your place in this world is. So that seems to be a similar question you're asking yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I would say initially I was very idealistic about this whole scenario of sustainability. I thought there was only one way to go about it, and there was no place for imperfect solutions. But I think I've come a long way in understanding sustainability as such, that even if you have to travel to India, maybe in India you can take a train. So it's all about, I think, just to have the intent to be sustainable is the first step. Just to be aware that we can also do this in a sustainable way. And I think there are solutions, but it just involves like putting together things and just talking about it. So I think that's the point I've reached currently, that even though there is no one solution that I can create, if I can just get people to talk about this and know that this exists as a way of life or as a philosophy, anything, then half the challenge is met, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks for this comment. I think that's quite important to understand that you can't save the world alone, and it's just little steps, and it's also good to do the little steps, I think.
Yeah, it's just that good little steps are not sensationalized in that way, so it never really reaches a wide audience. So I think you will have to do something really huge, which takes a lot of time. So I think we're stuck in that trap currently. Like, what do we do about sustainability?
Yeah, and you as a designer probably also know that, I mean, there's always the question, is it necessary to design another coffee machine? Is it necessary to design a new chair for the 1000th chair? So I think that's all related together.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's a different conversation altogether to talk to the client about sustainability, because it's so subjective and relative that what I think is sustainability is not what the client thinks it is. So to get to the same page on that is.
And I have the feeling at the moment people are already getting tired of this sustainable theme, because this topic is everywhere.
Exactly.
Everything you buy is sustainable.
Yeah.
It's all everywhere. It's labeled like sustainable, and in the end, as a consumer, you totally lose the overview what is right or wrong to buy.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're very interested to know how it is in a landscape architectural community. How do you deal with this dilemma, Swati?
Actually, we have this huge dilemma, and I totally agree with Aruna and Manasi, and both of them put forward very valid points, because landscape architects are designers, and we basically our main stakeholder or the user is human being, and human being is the biggest consumer on earth. So that is where the dichotomy starts actually. So we design things to consume, get consumed, and for that to create those things, we ourselves as designers consume a lot of resources. So I think with that note, we have to accept that we are, changing landscapes to certain extent. But at the same time, as you said, there is a client involved. There are natural parameters like land, water, vegetation involved in landscape. We also need patronage as designers. Unless there is a client, we can't, create things or design things. So client is also a very important stakeholder. And I feel sustainability, as Manasi said, is very subjective, very true. It has got various aspects like social, economic, and so on. So I think how do we set up a cycle of sustainability, according to me, is very crucial. Like, for example, in design landscapes, whether we are using imported soil or not, or we are managing our landscapes within the resources that we have on site, like, for example, using local stone, or using native species, which will encourage flora, I mean fauna, local fauna, and so on. So there are indirect benefits which we can, I think, inculcate in our designs as designers, especially landscape architects. And I think another aspect that Manasi and both of them, especially Manasi, I think I really like your point that small is beautiful. Though it is small things matter a lot to reach to people, and really make them think empathetically towards things. So I think that is really beautiful that you said. So if we can set up those cycles and involve the patrons in the sustainability, even the product that you're doing in India will have a lot of positive impact in various circles. So also when it reaches to Switzerland, probably they will feel very empathetic towards the material that they are using. So there's a lot of awareness cycle which is moving across the globe, which I kind of like it. So similar things, landscape designers also have a similar situation when they are designing in various regions.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's also really a good point. I think it's not only about as a designer that you use materials which are sustainable. It's also our job to bring the message to the people, to reach the people, that they can get the point, that they can relate to sustainability or to what we are doing. Yes. And this was I think also one of the biggest learning, or the biggest point why we went to India. Maybe we could also find at the internet contact and make this contact via Zoom calls or so. But for us, it was quite important to really go there, to work with the artisans, that they can show us their knowledge, that we can share it, and that we really know who is working for each other, and that we work together. That it's not like we are ordering, we want to have this and that, just produce this stuff. It's like, hey, we really want to know what's behind this product. And then we can also, if we really know this, we can sell this story, let's say. We can really come here and tell people this story, and hopefully add value to the product with the story.
So that's probably also where one, as a designer, can take the responsibility we have as creative people. Because, I mean, if you work for a client, of course, the client has the last word and can decide. But we as designers can shift the design process in one way or the other and try to reach one kind of sustainability, be it the social or environmental sustainability. So I wonder, Aruna, you studied in the United States, right? So how is the topic discussed there?
Yeah, actually, I was making note of an example, and it's fairly coincidental that you asked me this question, because in one of my avatars, I've been an educator, and I've designed and taught learning abroad programs, experiential learning abroad programs. And we work with local stakeholders in the sustainability space to co-design these programs. And one of the stakeholders is in the waste management space, fairly renowned. And what we do with them is we do a trash collection trail. So when the municipal contractors go collect trash every morning, on one such morning, we follow them and make observations on how they interact with the communities, what kind of trash is generated. And I've done this trail a few times with different groups of students from universities in the US. And one of the observations that I've heard fairly incessantly is, per capita, per household, the amount of trash generated here in India is very, very minimal as compared to the trash that's generated in the US. It's because that we have a fairly large population and densely packed cities. And the visibility of trash is that much more prevalent that we feel like there is more trash. But per household, even in terms of actual generation and I would argue discernibility in terms of what is thrown away, even though a lot more can be done, is a little bit more advanced than in the US, because in the US it's out of sight, out of mind. Processing happens much more efficiently. So at the point of processing, the situation is more efficient, which is why at the point of generation you don't have to worry a lot about how things happen. And I've seen even in everyday life people using so much toilet paper. I mean, people using toilet paper for one, people using a lot of toilet paper, people indiscriminately, even things like you go to a restaurant, they give you these gigantic glasses of water, and how much of it can you drink, right? And everything is supersized, which is considered to be good value for money, but it doesn't bode very well for wasting food. And even your compostable plates, it apparently takes a lot of energy to employ the composting process to something that is compostable. And sustainability is really the purview of certain pockets of the country. So Minneapolis, where I lived, I was in a university campus. So there were a lot of initiatives where people were encouraged to bring their own water bottles. There were water bottle filling stations. But then there is really, I think, the blindness of plenty that happens in a country like the US, that you don't have to worry about being sustainable unless you are really discerning or you are really tuned into environmental concerns, and you move in circles where the environment is respected. There's no opportunity to think about things of that sort. In India, there is more opportunity to think about it because trash is visible, right? You can see trash everywhere. So even if you're not of that inclination, you see trash and you say, okay, this is unsightly. You stop at that perhaps, but you say, okay, it's unsightly, right? It's coming from somewhere. So yeah, that's my view.
So would you say that there is the need for political action like that? It should be kind of organized by government, by small groups, or so do you think there's a need for political action or political instrument for trash collection and so on, and for sustainability in general?
Yeah, I think my other Indian friends like Neeti and Mansi can comment on it, but I'm using trash collection as an example because that's a highly contentious and a highly contested space. But I think instead of political action, it's more civil society action that's relevant, because waste management is a highly politically contested space. So civil society actors and nonprofits that work in the space are often at loggerheads with the establishment, because the optics get skewed, right? The government is supposed to be responsible for civic services, and when they don't do their jobs, that's where the nonprofits and the social enterprises step in, which means they're treading on the toes of the government. So the government doesn't like it, and so they try to first block action. And when they see that the civil society lobby is very strong, or the work speaks for itself, slowly the municipal authorities might get on the side of the civil society orgs or the nonprofits, simply for the optics. So even if it's, in terms of political action, I think the sentiment of political action is good to borrow, but in terms of political establishment, there can be a lot of contestation, so one needs to move very carefully. I don't know, Niti, Mansi, what do you think?
Yeah, Niti, I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
as the biologist, what is your point of view?
Yeah, I have a lot of scattered thoughts, but I'll try to put everything together. So, about the government agencies, I agree with Arna that we do need like a top-down approach in a big way, where there has to be a shift in making some things compulsory. And we were talking about this in our yesterday's conversation also about waste management with Richard, where I think India needs to have some reforms where we sensitize people, and when people pay here, then it's there that, oh, now we have to pay for disposal of waste, and otherwise these things will always be taken casually. So I think, yes, in terms of going through the government, but then I would also give credit to these government agencies, because they are upgrading their priorities. And for example, a lot of these agencies that fund scientific and social projects, they've come up with special call for proposals with EU partners which have climate change as a theme, or which have environmental sustainability as a theme. And these calls are open throughout the year. So that gives you enough time to find a suitable EU partner and put up some objectives, and they give you some funds if you can justify it. So I think that would be a good way to begin, where scientists and artists and designers can collaborate. And they're very flexible in terms of the consortium that you can form. It's not restricted to particular domains. So it's not only scientific now. So that is good, which is changing at the central ministry level, at least in India. And I think social media also plays a lot of roles. So at least what I've seen in my career is that as researchers or as scientists or as people who are doing these cloning experiments in the lab, we don't care about putting it out or sharing it or translating it into layman language for the huge, more general common people. But again, the central ministry has been promoting this phrase of popularization of science. So now it's not just the case that you just do your experiments and publish it in fancy journals, but you also have to translate it and convey the message to as many people as possible. So through Twitter, I think Twitter is one platform where a lot of scientific community at least is very active. And United Nations, I was also discussing this yesterday, the SDG, every SDG has a lot of activity going on. So I think even if it's a small project which is promoting sustainable design, to promote it or to gain to see that we exploit social media to the fullest. I remember certain projects coming up which sensitize people about the e-waste. I think there were these speakers that were generated from recycled metal by the company People, which was from Stockholm. So that gained a lot of attention here. And then we were sensitized towards the e-waste, the number of laptops that we were, quickly switching and disposing of. So now there's some awareness coming in. So I think we need to exploit these arenas of social media as well. And I think sustainable term is actually becoming old, but we're moving towards productivity, and something that's sustain on its own, but that's also like, is there scope to generate revenue from it? So yeah.
Yes, I think one really important point you mentioned is sharing knowledge. I think it's much easier now. You have all these types of media where you can really easily share your knowledge, but especially also in design, I think there's a lot of potential to share more your knowledge, because it's often like you made a cool product and then you have a patent on it. It's your idea. You want to make the money with it. You don't want to give the knowledge to somebody else. I think there is a huge opportunity to share this knowledge, not just keep it for yourself, because I think, you can have much a bigger effort if you share it. But I think there is also a long way to go.
So I guess, Manasi, you have something to say here.
Yeah, I mean, so I used to be the type of, I still am the kind of person who is always like, don't buy this. And I've lost like a lot of friends because of being like this, like, why do you want to buy this, from the shopping mall? And why don't you compost? And why are you eating non-veg? And it's somehow like, I just realized this is so exhausting. Like, as a consumer, I am going and looking, I'm exhausting myself by searching for information on sustainability to just know what is right and wrong. And at this point, at least, I feel that about EPR, extended producer responsibility, that I really think the companies and corporates who are generating the waste need to just take it back. Like, I mean, and sustainability makes sense only at a certain scale. Like, just me composting at home and just giving my plastic bags to a recycling unit, although it makes me feel really altruistic and good, but it's not doing anything at a scale. So I really think companies need to somehow engage the customer to think of sustainability as something we all can do, and not that you have to be educated to access the information sources where you can get to learn about sustainability. So I think information, and also because we all know how greenwashing happens, right? Like, you create one brand campaign and you don't even know what action the company has taken to be able to communicate like this. So I think there's this whole information asymmetry, companies not telling us what is happening to the waste, and this greenwashing is totally, I mean, I went through a real, like, it almost affected like my mental health, that I'm not able to, I think there is a term for this called eco-anxiety. Like, you get anxious because you know there are so many problems around you, but you can't do anything about it. And it's always like this little thing in your head, like it's just itching away, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I buy this? So I think it will just be helpful if companies could, and I think the customers are asking for it now. And just as a way to, and I think it's okay to look at sustainability from a completely profitable lens, because companies are going to look at it that way. We can't ask them to do CSR in sustainability. So I think it's really important that it just comes into the mainstream consumeristic, because I don't think we're going to change the way we are living right now. Like, we are too comfortable and nothing is challenging us. So sustainability has to just somehow find a layer all over this, and not really force people to go back to living in mud houses. And we are moving towards a more urbanized society, and sustainability solutions should work in the lifestyle we have right now. So I think that connection needs to be made somewhere.
So you mentioned the eco-anxiety. So it's very interesting. And when we were in India in 2017, we were there kind of in a very safe cultural surrounded by artists, by designers, we went to museums, to galleries, and so on. So we spent our time there more, not all the time, but mainly within this
bubble.
Yeah, within this bubble. So now I'm wondering, because when I look at our discussion here, we have 5 women and myself. So I wonder, does it have something to do with gender? So maybe you can say something about that, Swati, because you teach at the College of Architecture for Women.
Swati, we can't hear you. You're muted.
That's a very good observation. And I have been working in Women's College, Banumen Nanavati College of Architecture. And we have this Maharshi Karve Stri Shikshan Samstha as an umbrella, which is more than 125 years old, and which has been working towards empowering women through education and, building up empathy in terms of bringing them in the mainstream society and occupation and so on. So it's a very fascinating journey when I read about it, when I experience it. And as Aruna said, when it comes to livelihood issue, I think women play a major role in India in terms of earning, then making things work for their families, and they work shoulder to shoulder, or maybe more than that, especially in rural areas and also in urban areas. So this gender centric sustainability, if you're looking at, then women are, by gender they are more sensitive, and their thinking processes and the competitiveness that they face is very different. That's what we have observed in our institute also. And they get very much concerned about ecology and all these nature related things very quickly. I mean, they feel very attached to it, and in the long run also they have this very basic nurturing kind of a nature that God has given us. So I think that also helps in many ways. As soon as you give them freedom, power, you give them, responsibility of working in this particular space, then I feel they have the capacity to perform a lot better. And still in India, I feel they are not in urban India, many times they are not the first earners, but they can be very good educators. So that is another secondary role, maybe you can say, they are playing in the family. And it's said that if the woman is using organic vegetables, then the whole family is eating organic vegetables. So it's as simple as that. So what comes to your plate comes through a woman's thinking and hands. So it directly goes to your, it becomes your food, which is a basic need. So that's a very interesting way to, get very very close to the sustainability concept in a very very simple way. So I think that's very interesting, that I have observed in my students also, in my colleagues also. There are many active women in India who are working on sustainability through their NGOs. There's a NGO called as Brown Leaf, who collect. Aditi is the main person who collects all dried leaves and converts into compost. She has made it a mission of life, a very good friend of mine. Then there is a firm called as Oikos, where they work in ecology and awareness building. So there are many people where there are women who are the main initiators of such, sustainability based, activism, I would say. It's not just education, but also activism. So I think mothers, I mean, sisters, I mean, all these, they have a key role to play in the family and the society.
Great. I like this point of view with the vegetables. Very interesting. Yeah, so we only have a few minutes left, I think. So maybe we can come back to the question, how can we solve this dilemma? The room topic was human versus environment, but shouldn't it be human with, or together with, or with environment? So maybe we can discuss that.
Can I go first? If anybody
Sure, please.
So I'm glad you mentioned oikos, because I did a 1-year course in ecology in Pune, and I realized I have never felt that connected to nature before when I did this course of ecology, right? Like I felt like this, everything is connected, and my action and each thing, like the butterfly effect. So I feel if more people don't feel this, then it is always going to be human versus environment. That this connection that we are all, this cause and effect. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the core, and our lifestyles are taking us away from that. Living in like concrete buildings, when you look out of the window, it's so rare to just see nature these days. So it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? Why care about something I don't see every day? So I think in any way, if we can get nature closer and reinforce that we are connected to it and we are it. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to talk about human versus environment because it's the same. And
We are a part of it, yes.
yeah, so that's why this whole thing of natural, like how products sell right now, like natural, organic, man-made, handmade, it just doesn't make sense to me. They're just words, because I feel like just I think only because of that course, and that's where I think education plays such a crucial role, that kids in school need to know about this, that we are so connected to the environment, and it's not saving environment for environment's sake but our sake, right? Like it's okay, we have to be selfish and save ourselves, and for that we need to save the environment. So I think this concept is very important to have, to even that's the basis of sustainability. So
Yeah. So you mentioned that when you look out of your window, you mainly see concrete buildings. So I guess there's also a big difference between urban and rural
yeah,
regions. So it's another topic probably, but
yeah, that's a different topic altogether.
it would open another discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, Mansi, you talked about greenwashing, and I would like to talk about broad brushing, right? So, it happens in every space, but especially in the sustainability space, the markers of sustainability or sanction and recognition really comes from standards that are developed in the developed world, so to
Correct.
speak. So something like a LEED platinum certification, I'm not an architect, so people trained as architects can jump in. How relevant is it to the Indian context? Given our indigenous architecture, does it really fit into a certification developed not in the developing world? So one way to really respect the local milieu is to showcase and highlight what happens locally by way of sustainability. So I don't mean to romanticize, but we my Indian friends will know we use banana leaves at weddings and during celebrations. We have a very efficient informal recycling system through our scrap collectors or kabadi walas. We sell newspapers to them and then they upcycle. So I think in every context there might be local examples of sustainable practices that are already deeply embedded in that context. So it's really to me it's important to bring those to the forefront instead of using standards that were not developed in that milieu and then saying, oh, we are falling short, right? Because then you're bending and twisting things out of shape. Like Mansi was saying, you look at concrete buildings. Our climate is not made for steel and glass buildings, right? It's because it's a marker of urban development that we have concrete buildings everywhere. But indigenous architecture is not steel and glass, right? It's terracotta and even design elements that are in keeping with the weather we have in different parts of the country. So and another point is pre-organized religion, when we had animistic pagan practices, there was a lot of nature worship that happened. So even now we worship the holy basil, the tulsi plant. So if you really burrow and ferret out local indigenous examples, it's very beautiful to discover that, and that's what we need, rather than broad brushing and saying, okay, this doesn't fit, so this particular milieu is falling short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that steel and glass isn't the normal type of buildings for rural areas. So I think depending on where you live on this planet, different kinds of materials and ways to construct and build products should be applied. So Niti, you're kind of the responsible for the smallest part as a molecular biologist. Can you say something from your perspective?
Yes, certainly. While we are all becoming sensitive towards the problems that we know today exist, but we are going to have a lot of newer problems in the coming future, and the lifestyle or the way we are treating our natural resources and the environment, it's only going to impact us negatively. And one big example that I can give you is of the antibiotic resistance that is starting to rapidly increase. And in layman's language, it just means that all these antibiotics that treat us today will become ineffective because they are being misused and they are being disposed wrongly. And there's so much available in the environment that superbugs are, multiplying. And we still don't have sensitive methods to even detect these compounds. So this is what I mean by emerging micropollutants, that in the lowest of the quantities, they are doing huger harms to us. So we have a lot of troubles coming up if we continue to abuse and misuse the resources that we have. I'm a little positive, little hopeful in terms of the way I see that the teenagers are using again social media and are a little aware, and I hope upgradation of the study material or the education textbooks, especially in India, can help at this stage, because we need to have definitions of climate change or temperature rise to be included as basics in what we study now. And these are real life situations, and this is what is going to, like, this is coming up whether you believe it or like it or not. So I think we are at a very right time to start paying attention, to be aware, and to talk about these issues. Yeah.
Great, thanks. It's good that you kind of finished our discussion, because I think time is over, with a short outlook to the future, because what we're discussing now is very related to the future. So maybe to sum the discussion up, there is hope, right?
Yeah, I think that's also what I want to say to you. I think it's sometimes hard to not lose the energy for this topic, to go on and go on, but I think that's our job. So all of us, we can relate to that. And yeah, every day again, talk to people, tell people about the topic, and
yeah, especially ask questions and be in a constant research. I think that's what we as designers, as a small studio for design, realize, that as a designer you should know everything about any material, which is not possible, but you can make small steps and keep researching and asking questions.
Yeah, and out there are so many people who have the knowledge. You just have to find them and connect. And this would be also a wish that, like we did now here, that we shared our knowledge, that we maybe can also stay in contact. If you have questions or something, that you can always write to us. It would be a pleasure to stay in contact with you.
Yes, thanks for joining very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being there. Hope it's been a nice conversation. I would request all the guests, if you don't mind, if you can drop out of the room. You can join the panel where Lucas and Karina will be talking with the rest of the room experts from today. So that starts at 5 p.m. You can find the link on the website. And yeah, we hope to see you there. You can tune into that room as a viewer. And yeah, once you drop out, I have three questions for you, Lucas and Karina, which have come sort of from the internal team and from guests who are working with. Okay, so Aruna, Mansi, and Swati, I'm taking you out of the room for now. I hope that's fine.
Thanks a
Okay.
lot. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, great. So we are here, and the questions that we have received, the first one is, yeah. The first question is, can you share some specific problems anywhere in the world that you would love to go and resolve the design? This so this it's a question because you've done projects in IT, you've come to India, but is there something that you have on your mind that this is a very specific place somewhere that you want to go and do a project for some reason?
I'm very sorry. The connection is so bad. We hardly can understand you.
Okay, I'm going
Can you
to.
repeat the question or write the question in the chat? Then we can answer it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. Very interesting. Oh, there are so many nice places to go and to maybe solve questions or solve problems with design. So I mean, we traveled not everywhere on the world, but we saw some places. And one thing, so I'm talking for me now, for myself, is that you can see trash everywhere. So that's something I'd really like to solve with design. If trash would become valuable, and you could collect it in very easy ways and reuse it, recycle it, upcycle it. So that would be something I'd really love to solve with design.
Yeah, maybe you can say some sentences to the project which is going on in Haiti.
Yeah, so we went for a project to Haiti this February. It was all about a mobile sanitation service by an American NGO. So they provide a sanitation service for urban families that haven't access to running water. So they have kind of a very simple bucket and container-based sanitation service. So sanitation is seen as one of humans' rights. So I think that's something very interesting, and also because we as Swiss designers based in Switzerland to broaden our mind by going somewhere out in the world. That's something that is very interesting, that we can solve a problem, and on the other hand we learn a lot for ourselves and for our culture, and the exchange is of course the interesting part of it. I don't know if we answered the question.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
More or less.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I could hear you, and I give you the next question now, which is the difference between art and design just functionality and purpose? I am also going to paste it here.
Yeah.
It's a very broad question, but I think sometimes the creative people, when they have to make these choices of whether to go into design or art, there's always this
Yes,
thing about the
I think for us the border is not so clear between art and design, and that's also the interesting part for us, because it's about creativity, it's about ideas, it's about making something happen. And for us, it's not important if it's design or if it's art. It can come together. So yeah, I think we also have projects. Some are more related to art, but we are designers. But for us, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and the borders blur a bit when it comes to limited edition designs. Maybe one piece series, which is a strange thing to say, or a 5-piece series of chairs, for example. So there, the border between design and art is very unclear. And I think, as Karina already mentioned, that's a very interesting field to move in. So maybe, I don't know if functionality is really the difference.
Right. I think there's also always this question about aesthetics, right? That when I think when we, I mean, this is just coming out of my own conversation sometimes with artists or with designers, that aesthetics is something that maybe becomes an important part when something that is a design object can suddenly become like an artistic object, or maybe become high art or something like that. But yeah, I think what you say is a great perspective to listen to, and to, yeah, it's always a tough thing to kind of differentiate between these two things, and they are very close to each other. There's always a thin line. And the third question is something that's kind of strange, but I send it to you anyways. While you're working with sustainable design and consumption, just wondering the thinking behind the use of the word of consume as part of your name.
Oh, I wonder who asked this question. So it's a very good question.
Yes,
Thanks.
I think that too. Yeah, I think that we have our name is KreativKonsum, which is creative consumption, and yeah, you can feel it. Consumption has something negative. We have a connotation which is negative to consumption, but in the end, consumption keeps us alive. Consumption itself is not negative. It's just we connotated it like this, and that's what we also want a little bit to provoke with this word in our name, to be creative with this consumption. That we have to consume because that keeps us alive, but let's find ways, creative ways, sustainable ways to do it.
Well said. Thanks.
Do you want to add something to that?
No, I think Karina summed it up very nicely. So of course the name asks questions again. So, and obviously that worked.
Okay, so then we come to an end in this session, and I think we should